Hi, I'm Corey.
Hi, I'm Tess.
Welcome to A Lovely Place.
We're so glad you've joined us as we invite Jesus into the midst of our lives, learning, and laughter.
We hope this podcast can encourage your heart and make you smile today.
Good morning, Corey.
Good morning. Or should I say afternoon or evening in case
Right.
that's... Oh, I'm just kidding.
Whenever people are listening.
Yeah, good. Hello. Good morning to you, though.
This is A Lovely Place, and we are talking about our featured book, Find Your People by Jennie Allen. And we've gotten into the chapters where she's starting to talk about the things that we need to find our people. And this chapter is chapter 5, which is called Close, and talking about proximity. And she uses the picture of like a campfire to kind of demonstrate that. So I thought this was a good chapter. It reminded me of when I used to go camping a lot with my family, with my parents when I was younger.
Yeah.
And just the magic of like sitting around the campfire, late into the evening and maybe having s'mores or maybe just sitting wrapped up in a blanket and admiring the fire, And so I love that she used that as the picture for this chapter for something we need in relationship. So
yeah. And the contrast was the goal was proximity, being close, but the barrier, busyness.
yes.
Like, oh,
Right? Yeah.
am I creating too much busyness that I can't have friends, like, or that closeness, right? If you're running around like a bee all the time, they're not hanging out with people.
Right?
Or, I mean, they're doing their bee thing. I'm not saying they can't do their bee thing, but just that picture of flying around and not sitting, I guess.
Yes. You can't, if you're always flying around, you can't stay in one place for very long.
And stare at the fire.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So she talks about how, like in our olden days of culture before we started living in homes, separated homes that, like in tribes and things like that, they would have conversations about work and productivity and things like that the majority of the time during the day. And then in the evening when it was dark around the fire, as they, met as a community around the fire, they would have conversations about, I think she said like compelling stories, like spirituality, like that kind of thing. And those like deeper conversations than just the surface level stuff. And man, those are the kinds of conversations I like to have, So
Yeah.
I'm like, that sounds good.
Yes. I think that's what we're like the other chapters, like the connection we crave. It is something that we're designed for and need, and depending on how fluidly you went through life. I don't know if that's the right word or whatever. Like, how much baggage are you carrying with you? Maybe that's the next chapter. But anyway, so I like because when I first got this book, I kind of flipped around and was kind of trying to get the gist of it because I was like, I need some friends or whatever. But we weren't reading this book yet. And I liked in there, she put a little map, like map out where you're at every day. And then are there anybody or who in those different circles or contexts would you maybe like to talk to more? Or so it's like being aware and being intentional. And so I like that she was literally mapping it out, like, and highlighting and circling and like, oh, maybe this person would be good to talk to, or to say, hey, you want to, I don't know what, get coffee, sit on the fire. I don't know.
Sit on the fire.
Sit around the fire.
Don't sit on the fire.
Okay, good.
Yeah. Oh, goodness.
I'm awake. Sure I am.
Well, and I just love, so she has this quote. She says, "Ending the day around the campfire where songs, stories, and relationships blossomed, ultimately shaped cultures and perhaps even helped develop some of our ability to understand one another, cooperate, and internalize culture." And that's from the National Academy of Sciences. And it was just making me think, like, coming back to a place to sit with people we love at the end of the day. And so for a lot of us, maybe that's like the dinner table or something like that. I know
Well,
that for families, they say sitting at the dinner table together is part of like the framework for a successful, well-connected family. You know,
yeah.
but like maybe having a space where we can do that with people we love and sit and process like our day could be such a helpful, healthy thing, you know? And so I am really drawn to this idea of including friends into that too. And I feel like we had that as an element in our friendship when you guys lived here. You know, it was like sometimes we would just like, okay, we're randomly doing dinner together, even though we hadn't necessarily
Right.
planned it or whatever.
Yeah.
But it just makes me think like it's in those times when we can sit and talk and process and think that maybe the things in our day won't seem so overwhelming or isolating, you know,
Uh-huh.
as they might if we just go from one thing to the next and then now it's bedtime, you know? Like,
Right. Right. And
'cause I do that
amen for
sometimes.
bedtime, right? Like,
well, yeah. Yes.
yeah. Hashtag being a mama, I think is what that one is. Like, just,
Right?
that's it. No more questions today.
Yes. Yes.
No more managing what we're eating again. Or I don't know. Why is that whatever? Anyways, getting to talk about that with a friend though seems more fun and a little more like, oh yeah, I'm not doing this by myself. So
Right. Yeah.
there's value in being with people.
Yeah.
Oh, yes. It makes me miss you. And then it makes me go, why am I here? But not really why am I here, but kind of like, oh, if you had a taste of what a friendship could look like in close proximity, and now you're like, who
Right?
can you get the memo, friends? Like, what do I need to do to get this? You know, like I don't know. So
Yeah.
um I don't know. Nor can you compare every other friendship to a friendship either,
Right.
right? Because
Right.
that's not fair either. But
But it is nice to see like the I don't know, the benefit of it and how nice it is because then it can be something you aspire to, you know? Like,
yeah,
um,
and
yeah.
it feels like in the beginning of the chapter, she wore somebody stopped by her house and then she was in her bathrobe or whatever.
Yeah.
And so I'm just like, but no, there's not a lot of friends that want that necessary, or they don't know if they want it, or like to
Right?
just be that hair down, or I don't know, maybe your hair's up in a messy ponytail. I'm not sure which way it goes, but just that, like, here's the real me, like
Right.
unwound and
Not, like, prepared for
right.
going out or receiving guests, but just our real
Yeah, like, oh,
authentic, like,
here's what my
self.
house looks like every day.
Yeah.
Not just quick clean it up before
Right?
Wednesday or I don't know what.
Yes, that is
This
my reality.
this perception that I don't know. Somehow there's a tension of it because then that again, I feel like we always talk about Kendra Adachi, but she just made me think of this, like just like I know I'm skipping to the end of the chapter, but she was Jenny Allen was saying, here's your part of creating a space. And so that made me think of just Kendra Adachi and that the find your place and don't apologize for your mess and have a snack tray
Yeah.
and just have some snacks together and connect. Like that was the point of it being spontaneous and like, oh, here's some cheese and crackers. Let's hang out with our kids while they play frisbee
Right?
or just organically helping connection happen by not feeling like you have to be perfect.
Right. Or
Just
not having this expectation that if you host people over at your house,
Right.
you have to feed them like a feast, you know, like
Yeah, a complete dinner that you
where you get stuffed, you know.
Yeah.
That's what I've been thinking lately when we have people over for dinner is like, I don't have to feed them until they're like over full. Like
Yeah,
if we run
Thanksgiving.
out of food
Yeah,
and everybody's had a bit, that's okay. Like
yeah,
if they're really hungry, they'll go home and have a granola bar. Like I don't know.
right. They'll swing by McDonald's on the way home. I don't,
Right.
you know, like
It's
it's
not
like,
my deal, you
no.
know. So yeah. Oh,
So I guess we need to just relax then, huh?
a little bit, yeah. Or a lot, probably.
I don't think we're alone in this
Yeah.
challenge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I do like what she was saying about, I don't remember, I think it was in this chapter about putting your campfire out in your front yard or putting chairs or a table. And it reminds me of, I don't know, I read some story a few years ago, and I think they may have talked about it on Don't Mom Alone. But it's like this lady decided to just put I think it was specifically a teal
Yeah.
picnic table out in her yard, in her front yard. And she would intentionally just sit out there when she was reading or when they were snacking or doing homework or things like that to be present when people were coming around so that, you know, because it's like if you're in your house, you might not notice that someone's walking by to say hi to them. Like you may never see them.
Yeah.
And so the idea of putting yourself out there to be able to intersect people when they go by, even if it's just a wave or whatever, you know, but like, and then how that transformed the lady's like friendship and neighborhood and things, because then people just started coming and sitting at the table with her, and she learned more about her neighbors and the people in her space. So I like that idea. I'm also the type of person who's like, but then like, I don't know, then it just opens up that vulnerability, you know, which is scary, I think, but necessary, you know.
Yeah. Well, and then, or does it have to be all the time either? Like you can still go home and have a downtime, like a
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like the expectation is always
That you
have
just live in your front yard.
right. Like that's not good either. We need to have our home and our
Right.
our time. Like, but it is like being intentional, I think. And I think in Battleground, our street was a little, I mean, people would drive by fast, but it was a little neighborhood. Like it was, so then when you were out doing yard work in the springtime, then you were like, there was naturally like, hey, let's hang out or say, hi, how you doing? Or something, because you were outside. Like, so that I never quite got a table out there, but I liked that like excuse of yard work or going to check the mail or something like it. You're like outside your space. And then this house, it's like there's 4 houses in a little row, but then there's literally a busy road and a light. So it's like, I don't know if sitting in my front yard would be the answer in this particular context that I live in. But we do have a little HOA and people.
Yeah. Oh, and you have your green space that's in between all those houses. That might be a fun place.
Yeah. So it's just an interesting, like trying to create that culture, I guess.
Yeah.
Of being available and like you said, vulnerable. Like I was texting with a neighbor and she said yes to the book club that I started and she's going to do it again. And she just doesn't live very far. So I just was like trying not to like, oh, she's got to be like Tess now. Like, yeah, you can be my new friend that's really close. Like, you know, like,
right.
So we were texting. So that was fun. And and God was reminding me, she initiated texting back. Like it was like going both and forth forth and forth. Back and forth. Because in this chapter, Jenny points out 3 different things. Notice who's around you. Put yourself out there, like initiating conversation. And then 3, start great conversations. So I just was like, it was nice to be reminded that I wasn't always the initiator. So I was like, oh, look, here's a road where somebody is also reaching out. Oh, she must want to have a friend.
Yes.
Like, oh, that's a good combination.
Right? That was one thing that I found a little discouraging about this chapter was there was a quote where she said, "You will never have friends unless you are willing to consistently initiate."
Mhm.
And sometimes I think we may have talked about this on here at some point before where I'm like, "But I am the initiator on so many things in my life. Like if we want
Yeah.
to take a vacation, I initiate and plan and do all the things and like organize it all. I'm
Yeah.
like, I am the one that, like sometimes I'm like, I'm so tired of initiating. So I was a little discouraged by that,
Mhm.
but it also reminded me that like good things are worth working for.
Yeah.
And even if I don't know, like I think sometimes that feels a little bit almost like painful because it's like, well, are people not going to initiate with me? Like, so
Mm.
what is there reciprocal thing there? So I think
Yeah.
I was struggling with her statement of that right
Uh-huh.
there. I do see that like I I've experienced some people that are like, "Oh, I don't have very many friends or I'm not finding connection." And they're not trying at all. And so it's like,
Yeah.
well, you have to like, you know, it's like if you want something, you have to invest. Like you can't just
Yeah.
assume that it's going to come to you, but the idea of always being the one initiating is a little bit like, oh, I don't know about that. So,
Well, and then is that just how we feel too? Like maybe someone else is thinking they're initiating and we're missing it? Or you know what I mean? Like
yeah,
you're like too busy to hear, oh, that was that friend saying, hey, wanna, or I don't know, or
right.
they sent something, or I don't know. So I just was like, help me to see other people's initiating, and maybe it looks different than how I feel like I am, or in the different moment that I'm in, right? Like,
Yeah.
because when I read that, I was just remembering, um, I don't know, was Riker in a stroller when you guys moved in, and I was like
Yes.
purposely wandering around the neighborhood because I knew you lived somewhere over there, and
Uh-huh.
Battleground's not that big, so. And I was like, even though it's awkward, because I think I walked by before I actually
Yes.
went up to your door, and then I think we even talked about it on here, but you're like, "Who is this lady?"
Right. I was in the driveway, like
Yeah,
pulling something out of the car or cleaning the
yeah.
garage. And I'm like, what is going
What's
on?
happening? So then it's like, well, but that worked out.
Right. It
Like,
did.
how
That
many
just
years later, right? Like,
That makes me think of when we moved here, Elizabeth, our pastor, she was like, "Oh, I think that you and Corey would be really good friends. Like,
oh,
I think you'd get along together really well." And at first, like, I'm not the type of person who likes being set up with like people in general. So I was just like, okay. But then it was like, oh, she was right.
I don't know that I knew that she said
Yeah.
that. That's
Yeah.
funny. Well, there you go then.
She knew.
She she knew, and I was awkward is what I feel like. I feel like there was quite a few awkward times in the beginning of our friendship.
There were, but I think that I like that Jenny in the next chapter, she talks a lot about being awkward, but
Oh,
that
man.
you're like stumbling and falling and stumbling and falling like a
Yeah,
toddler to be
yeah,
able to get your feet under you, you
yeah.
know? But so that kind of goes along with she said that's step 1 for both you and me. Start seeing the people right in front of us as friends or potential friends at least. So you did that and here's where we are.
Yeah,
So,
so that could give us encouragement to try again, right? Like,
yeah.
and it's not, then I was thinking also, it's not like I'm trying to replace friendships
Right.
either. Like, not that I'm trying to make 1 million of them, because sometimes I
Right.
was like trying to be like, okay, wait, so I like that. Oh yeah, we're making a village of people that we can have authentic conversations, but we're not like giving everything away either.
Right, exactly.
So it was just interesting balance. And I think it's like either you're an acquaintance or you're my BFF. So it's like, oh, this is challenging to figure out, what does this middle village look like?
Yeah. Yeah. Which is a
Yeah.
good challenge to have, I think.
Mhm.
So that brings me to our verse for the day, is Hebrews 10:25, which says, "And let us not neglect our meeting together, as some people do, but encourage one another, especially now that the day of his return is drawing near." And that reminds me, sometimes I have this picture in my head that when the Bible is talking about something like that, it's talking specifically about like church, like meeting as a church, like on Sunday. But I remind myself that like we are the church, like, and we meet when we meet, like the verse that says, when two or more are gathered,
Yeah.
I will be there or whatever. So it's like meeting throughout our weeks, throughout our days is important. And encouraging each other, because man, I need encouragement, like, and I know that other people must too. And so just that reminder that we need to keep on keeping on, instead of just like, well, I'm just gonna stay in my house and read my book and never reach out to people, never see people. Because sometimes I'm like, I really would like that.
Yes.
But then I realize I don't actually. It may be a relief in the moment, but it doesn't bring connection that brings healing and
because you want
wholeness.
adventure, remember?
Right?
Yeah. Not just reading about adventure.
Right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So, anyway. Well, friends, we are praying.
I don't know why that was funny. Well, friend.
We're praying that this book is encouraging to you just as it's encouraging to us.
Yes.
And that God will give you wisdom as to how to step out in your life and find those friends, or maybe they're already right in front of you and you just need to
notice them.
So we pray that you would have proximity, closeness with the people that come into your path, and that you can find that group, the group that encourages you and is your people. So
and don't be afraid of awkward.
Yes.
But I think
if they're listening to us, I would assume they're not too afraid of awkward.
Okay. What does that mean, Tess? Oh, man.
Oh.
Well, on that note, talk to you guys later.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.